from one of the committee members. Go ahead, Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll move that the Audit and Finance Standing Committee direct the Chief Administrative Officer to provide a staff report outlining the financial impact of ensuring a minimum wage of $15 per hour for all employees of Halifax Regional Municipality, Halifax Public Libraries, as well as employees of multi-district facilities, regardless of employment status, that is covering part-time, casual, seasonal, and so on, to be implemented no later than April 1st, 2023. This report should be completed in time to inform the 23-24 budget process.
Second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morris. I'm not sure that that motion is quite in order as worded. I think it would be that the Audit and Finance Standing Committee has to recommend that Halifax Regional Council direct the CAO, but otherwise
we can ask for a staff report.
Fair enough. I saw Councillor Purdy motion towards something, and I see Jerry has his hand up. Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, just on the chair's point, I would recommend that the report go back to regional council, and don't like to do this too often. Step outside the committee's mandate on financial matters, but with the motion that's coming forward, it would likely have some other impacts that we need to consider as well, just around collective agreements and things like that. So just I think it's would be more appropriate to go right to regional council.
Well, and I appreciate that, Jerry, except that we don't have to go to regional council to ask for the staff report, and I understand your reasoning for it, but I will challenge that. And I would like, if our solicitor is on the phone, to say whether we have to or not, because my understanding of Administrative Order 1 and the Charter is that a committee can ask for a staff report.
Go ahead, John.
Chair, through the committee, yes, a committee can ask for a staff report within its mandate. I think what the chair and Jerry is indicating is that this is likely going to be something that goes quite a bit beyond the pure financial side. It has labor and other implications. So the report you get back may not be very helpful if it simply does not or is not able to address the rest of the issues that are there. So, I mean, I would leave it up to the CAO and or Jerry as his representative, but this is likely got quite a bit more hair on the ball, as it were, than simply looking at the financial implications.
Well, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. 6 one way, half a dozen the other. But I'm fine with that. So I would, everything being the same, recommend that the Audit and Finance Standing Committee recommend that Halifax Regional Council direct the CAO to prepare blah, 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 blah.
Okay, thank you. I would see that as a friendly amendment. Councillor Morse, would you?
Yes, I do.
Beautiful. Thank you. That is the motion that is on the floor. Go ahead, Councillor Cleary.
So quickly, and I've got an amendment to add to this, which I'm going to fix up while I'm doing this. So the idea here is obviously the provincial government is moving to increase minimum wage to $15 per hour by April 1st, 2024. And as some questions were asked to our staff, and I believe it was Denise Schofield that answered them with regard to what we're currently paying. So when we look at our multi-district facilities, we look at our own rec facilities, we look at libraries. Sometimes we hire folks casually, part-time, and we pay them kind of the market rate. So if a job for a summer counselor is 13 or 14 bucks an hour, that's what we're paying them. And I think as we have been moving in our procurement process to a living wage, as we have been talking about with our own staff, paying appropriately, it would be, I think, it would look bad for the municipality to simply wait for the province, who's been just moving on this way too slow over the last decade to increase minimum wages, that we get there before they do. Also, and this will speak to an amendment I'll bring forward, but I'd like to hear what other councillors have to say just about the $15 an hour. we're not talking about full-time permanent staff here. Most of them are already making in excess of this. We're talking about, a fitness instructor, for example, who might teach classes at 4 or 5 different facilities, being paid $14 an hour, or as a class cost, a fixed rate. And then, it would depend on how many people sign up for a class. So I think it just behooves us to be paying people a fair amount and continue to move that up to a living wage. Although I do get the sense that, living wage for if you're paying $21 an hour, $22 an hour, that's appropriate for, say, a full-time permanent position where you would expect someone to be earning a living wage to make a life for themselves. If you're, a student going to school, there are arguments on both sides of this to say, well, they have other sources of income, they have other supports and don't require the living wage. But anyway, we should at least be paying a minimum of $15 an hour and get there before the province does. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cleary. Go ahead, Councillor Daigle-Gammon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councillor Cleary and Morse for the motion. I guess my biggest concern is that these are entities that are not run by HRM, right? So the governance model and what and how can HRM impact the salaries? I do know that we cover deficits from our multi-district facilities. I do know that they're run by very competent and hardworking volunteers and all of that kind of stuff. That's been my world for many, many, many years. But we're not involved in their how they set their budget, their operations, all of those kinds of things. And this would actually insert us into theirs. So I'm sure, I think what was that phrase? Somebody just used, more hair on the ball. Is that what John Trave said? So yeah, so I absolutely will support, because I think that it's information that we need to have, but I do think that it will be a very complicated path to get to. But in terms of getting everyone to $15 an hour, absolutely. So it would be, what is that path? So it would be interesting to see that report. I will look forward to it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Daigle-Gammon. Go ahead, Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thanks for this motion. That was my question too when I was reading this, just wondering about the MDFs and what that governance model, how we can force that to happen, but also concern about I guess what was mentioned already, the agreements, like oh my gosh, what's the word? Help me out. Negotiated wage agreements, union.
Collective
yeah, there you go. So how does that work? So I guess, so I'm going to support this going for the report, but is it yeah, what are the implications? I'm just thinking, what are the implications? I mean, obviously, yes, we want people making $15 an hour, but what are the implications right now? So I guess I'm wary of this, because I don't know what is it more harm than good? Sometimes there's good intentions can not work out so good, but yeah, looking forward to a report for more information. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morse. Sorry, Councillor Purdy. I saw Councillor Morse's name in the chat. Go ahead, Councillor Morse.
Just following up on Councillor Purdy's comments there. I know some of the MDFs are having trouble getting staff. They have many, many part-time staff. They're all making marginal wages and in part-time work. And if this was worked out, this could potentially make it easier for the MDFs to provide programs and bring staff on and keep them on. Right now, I think in some cases at Canada Game Centre, for sure, they're having trouble getting enough lifeguards and that sort of thing to run their programs.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Councillor Cleary, you are unmuted. Would you like to go ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so here's an amendment. I fixed up the wording. So I'd actually like to add a part 2 to this. So I've taken the current motion and it's part 1. And so the second part is that I would move that we add that we also look at a report of ensuring a living wage. So, you know, that 21 or 22, the CCPA calculation, which we've already adopted as part of our procurement policy, that we also ensure a living wage for all employees of Halifax Regional Municipality, the libraries and multi-district facilities, regardless of employment status, covering part-time, casual, seasonal, et cetera, to be implemented no later than April 1st, 2024. This report should be completed in time for the 24-25 budget process.
Second.
Well, thank you, Councillor Morse. So we are now talking about the new amendment, looking at the living wage. Go ahead, Councillor Cleary.
Well, essentially what this would do is to say, okay, let's move to $15 an hour next year. And then the year after, let's see what the impact would be if we were to go up to the living wage. And again, you know, based on the discussions we've been having about living wage in general and how it applies to our procurement policy, you know, we've exempted certain contracts and occupations, construction as an example. The intent is for, you know, full-time permanent kind of jobs. But I think it behooves us to look at this and to say, you know what, if we are truly a progressive municipality and we do want, I mean, literally just a few minutes ago, we adopted a policy that if you make below a living wage, as a household, you're going to get extra tax break because we recognize that that's very little money. And so how can we say that on one side of our mouth and then on the other side say, but as a municipality, as an employer, we're not going to pay you that. So the irony would be we would actually be exempting some of our employees from paying their taxes because we recognize we don't pay them enough. You know, what kind of employer would we be? If we were rebating our own employees because we refuse to pay them a living wage. So anyway, this will go to council, obviously, and have another discussion there. But I think we would need to be looking at this in a longer term, actually not even longer, medium term. What are we going to do next year? What are we going to do the year after that? And we should have a plan in place to pay people a wage high enough that they can live off of. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cleary. Go ahead, Councillor Daigle-Gammon.
Thank you very much. Oh, another report we're going to love to read and look forward to. And I actually mean that seriously. I am going to love looking forward to reading it. I guess the caution again is, are they our employees? Right? So just the whole governance piece, are they our employees or not? Their MDFs are run by the nonprofit groups. And so and some parts I think we can figure that out. There's smart people within HRM, and I do think that they will figure it out. But I do know that that's one of the hurdles that will have to be addressed in it. And I think the other thing is that we'll look to figure out about how do we progress to the living wage. I don't know. And then hopefully the report is going to say, what will that effect be on the tax rate? So how is this going to implement? Because we're talking about a new term in 2024-25. So yeah, it will be very interesting to see what that will be like and what will the implications be on the tax rate. And when you say all employees, Councillor Cleary, so we are talking about whether it's part-time, casual, term, or full-time. I just want some clarity. Are you thinking all of those? In some ways, I hope so, but I just want to be clear that it is about all employees. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Daigle-Gammon. I don't see any further names in the chat, Councillor. Go ahead, Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, yes, it's an amazing idea. I don't know, I feel trepidation about this. Every business person I've spoken to about this, because this is very interesting to me, this living wage concept, because it seems like yes, obviously amazing idea, but not one business owner has said that this is good because of the implications that this will cause. And how can we force MDFs to do this if they're not our employees. So I was wondering if we can vote on these two separately. I don't think I can vote in favor of this, although in theory, obviously, you don't want to see people not being able to make a living wage, but I feel like the implications are not going to be great. So can we split this?
Yes, we can certainly split this. We are still discussing adding this to the main motion. So this is still the discussion on the amendment. But yes, should it pass and should it come back as the main motion, then yes, we can absolutely split it. I don't see any further speakers, so back to Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of comments around some of the discussion that was raised. So in terms of governance with the MDFs, we actually have agreements with each of the multi-district facilities. So we can actually, so for example, they are in our buildings. HRM owns the buildings that they're in. We would have obligations for certain kinds of maintenance and things regarding that. We take on their deficits, we take their surpluses. In the agreements, we force them to use our booking systems. Basically whatever terms we agree on is what we can do. So if we say you must pay your staff this much, we can actually put that in the agreement, say you must pay your staff this much. Just fair warning, I have a motion coming forward that HRM will take over all the MDFs, but anyway, that's a whole other discussion. And in terms of the unions and, the unions not liking this in collective agreements, we have very few collective agreements where we pay any employees less than $15 an hour, just to put that in perspective. And I can't imagine a union is going to fight us and go, no, we don't want you to pay our members more. That won't happen. So, it's only a matter of negotiating new agreements to pay them more, which I don't think they're going to fight us on. Call me crazy. So, in terms of the implications, there are very few other than what's it going to cost us and are we willing to pay that price? That's really the bottom line. And Councillor Purdy, as a business owner, we already pay more than $15 an hour and we pay most of our employees a living wage. So most employers in the region already do this. So it's not a huge deal. Only those who are trying to earn more profit by taking it out of the backs of their employees are concerned about this. And frankly, I'm not concerned about them. So anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cleary. I don't see any further requests to speak in the chat, so are we ready for the question on the amendment? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Purdy.
All right, so by the amendment, you mean the living wage?
The living wage, adding the living wage to the main motion, yes.
Okay. May I just make one more question?
Absolutely, yep.
Or comment. So yeah, the business owners I've been talking to are small business owners who are finding it difficult to pay their employees anyway. And they were saying that just means the price of their goods are going to have to go up too. So they're going to have to charge more for the price of goods. And yeah, I know, like I see pros and cons with both of these things. This is very difficult. So yeah, okay. And
thank you, Councillor Purdy. We have a question in the chat from Councillor Hensby on how is a living wage determined. I believe that was determined. There is a website that determines the living wage that we are using in reference for the remainder of the contracts that come in. And Councillor Cleary has posted that in the chat as well. policyalternative.ca/publication/report/living-wages-nova-scotia 2021. Thank you very much for both of those, Councillors Hensby and Cleary. So seeing no further speakers in the chat, let's go with a question on the amendment. So all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. That amendment passes. It is now part of the main motion as per Councillor Purdy's previous request. We will be splitting the motion. Is there any chat on the, or any, are there any questions or comments on the main motion?
Question.
The question has been called on the main motion. So all in favor of part 1 of the main motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes. And all in favor of part 2 on the main motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all opposed say nay.
Nay.
Thank you very much, everybody. That passes as well. So we are moving along. The next item is the in-camera minutes from February 17th of 2000.